Built the decision on Built, which race?
Yeah, look, first and foremost, I just want to say, like, it's a huge honor to qualify a horse for the Kentucky Derby. It's the most coveted race on the planet. For our partners at Eclipse, and for a guy like Wayne Catalano, this is a dream. But from day one that we started Eclipse, we've always had the best interest of the horse as our paramount focus. And after really mulling it over and taking as much time as possible, we're gonna bypass the Kentucky Derby with Built and enter him in the Pate Mile with the Preakness under consideration as well. In his last couple races, as the distances have increased, it seems as though he's regressed a little bit in terms of his form, hasn't been polishing off his races as effectively as we'd want to see. Needless to say, the Kentucky Derby at 1.25 miles is a huge test of stamina. And while all the horses in the lineup have to prove that they could get the classic distance, he's told us in so many ways, at least at this stage of his career, that 1.25 miles is probably a bit outside of his scope. So look, the Pate Mile is going to be a war in and of itself.
Salty, isn't it?
It's not like he's going to be 8-5 in the Pate Mile either. He's probably 5-6-1, somewhere in that range. But he's probably 75-80-1 in the Kentucky Derby. So it's really a difficult decision to make from a human element, because this is what our partners get into Eclipse to do, is to be involved in races like the Kentucky Derby, which is so hard to do. And for a guy like Wayne, who, you know, I've got a really storied history with him going back 14, 15 years to the Animal Kingdom days, you know, and I've had a discussion with Wayne on this very backside at the end of Animal Kingdom's 2-year-old career, when Team Valor had hired Graham Motion to become the private trainer for the stable. Wayne had obviously developed Animal Kingdom to that point, and then, you know, 7-8 months later, he was a Kentucky Derby winner. I've always really wanted to get Wayne back to the Kentucky Derby, and it's been a goal of ours at Eclipse, and Wayne did his job. You know, he got this horse qualified for the Kentucky Derby, and for him to understand and put the horse's best interest first speaks volumes as to him as a horseman and as a human being, and also for our partners at Eclipse, putting the horse first. So it's a really tough thing to do. You know, there's another element to it that obviously Eclipse, owner of journalism, who, touch wood, you know, will be one of the favorites, if not the favorite, in 8 days' time. And, you know, we could have played some horsey poker and tried to keep maybe a more qualified entrant out, but it's just not what we're about. And, you know, if there are connections out there that believe their horse, who's on the outside looking in, deserves to run in the race, then we're not going to prevent them from doing that, and we'll let the chips fall where they may. But, you know, I really hope that Wayne has the opportunity to get back here again. He deserves it. You know, Eclipse will do our part, and I'm sure there's some owners out there with some nice 2-year-old colts or upcoming, you know, classic type colts that he certainly deserves a shot with.
If not that it was an easy decision, but if you didn't have journalism running, would it have been harder to say no, again, for the partners that...
I don't think so. There's actually no overlap in our partners between Built and journalism. So it's really about treating each horse as an individual. You know, we've been down this path before, and we've run third, our best finish. We've had a couple 5th and 6th place finishes, and then we've run last. And, you know, it's not to say that Built would have run last. You never know what can happen out there. But he's told us in so many ways that 1.25 miles just isn't his thing right now. And it's a wonderful experience. I truly believe that it's a special slice of Americana to do the walkover and be in that paddock for the Kentucky Derby and have your horse walk out to my old Kentucky home. I mean, there's nothing like it, and I want all our partners at Eclipse to experience that at some point. But we want to show up with the right horse, and doing right thing by the horse hopefully will pay dividends. He's a really good horse. He's got big wins in his future, and, you know, we just don't want to compromise him in any way by asking too much of him in the Kentucky Derby, where perhaps it sacrifices the rest of his campaign.
So, but you think he's got the ability that a race like the a race such as the Preakness, a 16th of a mile shorter, a lot of the Derby field clears out by the time you get to Baltimore. Pretty cool race in its own right.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's an American classic, right? And it is just a 16th of a mile, less in distance than the Kentucky Derby. But like you said, it could thin out a little bit between the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness. It often does. I certainly hope that Eclipse is, going to the Preakness with the Kentucky Derby winner. But that won't have any bearing on build either. So we're going to enter up in the Pate Mile tomorrow for next Saturday, assess that race. If he runs and runs well and comes back to his top form and comes out of it well, we can consider the Preakness, similar to like what Wayne Lucas did last year with Seize the Gray. And if we're not comfortable with the Pate Mile and feel like we want to wait a couple more weeks and assess the Preakness, we'll do that. So it's really just a day-by-day assessment.
So journalism, Bob Baffert has pretty much made the Santa Anita Derby his playground in recent years. What does it say about journalism that he's been the dominant 3-year-old over beating those Baffert horses?
Not an easy thing to do, that's for sure. I'm a California boy. Michael McCarthy's a California boy. So I've had it on my radar to try to get a really good young colt that has classic potential out to California to take on the Baffert behemoths. Somebody's got to. Bob's the king out there, and here at the Kentucky Derby, and rightfully so. So it's been a lot of fun to be able to succeed in those races against these Baffert horses, and don't discount Baeza either, from John Sheriffs, who's also no stranger to the Kentucky Derby. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been rewarding. It's been gratifying, to have a horse of this caliber that can go out there and do what he's done as he's developed, and Michael's just done such a brilliant job with him step by step. We just hope that we can transfer that California form to Kentucky.
Aron, are you and journalism prepared for all the attention and all the crowds that are going to be involved with this horse, your horse, and your group next week? And how do you manage that?
I can't speak for journalism,
Yes.
but he seems like he's taken it all in stride pretty well. He's a cool dude, and that's one of his attributes of many, which is he's just got such a great mind. You see him out here first morning on the track after a long travel day. He just walked out here with a bunch of cameras and a lot of attention and went about his business. I think he's got a quiet confidence about him. For us, this is where we want to be. We're a partnership company, so we try to provide this experience to our partners. We want them to enjoy it to the fullest. So it's really a matter of balancing, what I like to call good pressure of having the Kentucky Derby favorite, and the stress that goes along with that, while also really trying to enjoy this moment. It's such a unique window of time that we may never get the opportunity to experience again. So we're encouraging our partners to, enjoy it. We've got a great staff behind us at Eclipse: Kelsey Marshall Hughes, Sean Tugel, Jack Sadler, Andrew Kino, Bill Victor, the whole team. My business partner, Brian Spearman. We've been here before, not with the favorite, but logistically, we try to be as organized as possible because that takes a lot of the stress out of the equation. And then it's just a matter of the horse going out there and doing his thing. We're really fortunate. We're going to stay busy. We've got 7 horses scheduled to run on Oaks and Derby Day combined, and some really nice ones. So hopefully that'll keep our attention a little bit away from 6:57 on Saturday night.
You mentioned that journalism is has a quiet confidence about him. It seems like your trainer does too. Michael could be pretty intense, but he was really, really relaxed talking to the media the other day after the horse had trained here for the first time.
I like this version of Michael McCarthy. It's a lot more pleasant than the curmudgeon Michael McCarthy that we often see. No, I mean that in totally good humor. But look, we've got an important work that'll either happen Saturday or Sunday, and knock on wood, he comes out of it well and exudes the energy he's always shown us in the past few months. but he instills confidence in the humans around him. You know, people have asked me, am I nervous? Am I nervous? I'm sure nerves will be running through my body, you know, as we get closer to the race, but I'm way more nervous when we don't have the goods in a big race than when we do. And we've felt for a long time like we've got the goods, and hopefully journalism, you know, translates that notion into reality when it matters most, which is here in the biggest stage beneath the Twin Spires.
How many partners are there in journalism?
So there's, under the Eclipse umbrella, we've got the largest ownership percentage of the group, and there's about 5 or 6 guys under the Eclipse umbrella, great partners of ours. And then of course we've got our outside partners, Bridlewood Farm of John and Leslie Malone, great supporters of Eclipse in the game. Their CEO, George Isaacs, of course. Then we've got Bob LaPenta, who's, you know, a long-time horse owner, multiple classic winner. So the 3 of us won the Belmont Stakes in 2017 together with Taprit, with Todd Pletcher. Of course, Michael's a Todd Pletcher disciple. So we got the band back together on journalism, and hopefully have another classic trophy to add to our mantle. And then their breeder, of course, Don Alberto, retained an interest in the horse after Eclipse bought him as a yearling. So that's the original quartet. It's been a great group. Everybody's kind of got their own little flavor going. It's quite a melting pot of you know, backgrounds, but it's been a lot of fun, and hopefully we're just getting started. And then of course, really just honored to have the Coolmore contingent, having bought his breeding rights and going to participate in his racing career. That happened between the San Felipe and the Santa Anita Derby. So we're hoping that we've got the luck of the Irish on our side as well.
Do you allow yourself to think about what it would be like and what that moment would be like if you won this race? Or do you not go down that road?
You know, it's a slippery slope, but I was really fortunate to experience a win tangentially as the vice president of Team Valor when Animal Kingdom won the Kentucky Derby 14 years ago in 2011. Of course, that was Barry Irwin's show, and rightfully so. You know, he was the mastermind behind that whole Animal Kingdom success. So I was part of it, an intimate part of it, and I experienced it, but it's not the same as having your own silks as Eclipse and your brand out there represented. You know, it's obviously something that you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, but at the same time, you want to try to manifest it. You know, at Eclipse, we've got this moniker and have from day one called Believe Big. We don't want to just think it, we don't want to just dream it. You got to believe it in order for it to happen, and our partners thankfully have bought into that culture. You know, so look, it would be the ultimate honor in this game, and we have the utmost respect for every one of these other 19 horses that's going to line up in the gate. We know it's the hardest race in the world to win. We're not taking anything for granted. We're just really humbled to have a horse like journalism represent us in this race. Hopefully, you know, a long way to go still before he gets in that starting gate. But yeah, look, you know, you got to visualize it in order for it to manifest, and hopefully we'll have that opportunity. But it would be the ultimate honor for our partners, for Michael and his family, my family, and everybody else associated with this horse.
How big is the Eclipse contingent that will be here on Derby Day?
We'll be pretty deep in the Ville here, not just because of journalism himself and the partners associated with him, but of course because of our undercard horses as well.
Yep.
Locked is going to run in the Ali Sheba. Obviously he's a pretty big name horse, so we'll have a good strong contingent of partners with him. Another horse called Valentinian should run on the undercard in an other event, and then on Friday we've got a filly in the Oaks too, Fondly, who's really under the radar, sort of two opposite ends of the spectrum, where you know, we've got a filly that's getting no attention at all in the Oaks. We're more of a filly operation as it is. We just happen to have a really good colt this year. And then, you know, we've got Vixen in the Edgewood with DJ Stable, Mark Cassie, you know, and built to run on the undercard too. So it'll be a really strong crowd with the baby blue and black.
I'm just trying to picture the number of people who will be walking with this horse on the walkover. Sometimes it's an average crowd, sometimes it's a huge crowd around the favorite. So
Yeah, the way we look at it is the more the merrier. And this is an experience that we might never get the chance to have again. So we want to make sure that everybody indulges in it, takes advantage of it to the fullest extent possible, while also respecting the space of the horse and knowing that he's a prize fighter that's about to step in the ring out there in the biggest stage the world over. So our partners are sophisticated, they're respectful, they understand that there's a job to be done here. We're in this to make history. We want everybody to enjoy it as much as possible as well. But yeah, look, anybody of our partners that have an interest in journalism that want to make that walk over and experience that, they're going to do it.
For those who are not familiar with the horse and the story, journalism comes from where? The name journalism.
Yeah, so he's a son of Curlin. We've been very fortunate to have some very good progeny of Curlin. Nest, Carolina, multiple grade 1 winning fillies, champion. But they're hard to name, Curlin. So you can't really go off of the name Curlin too much. So we focused on Mopetism and Uncle Momer, who's the dam of journalism, and tried to figure out what Mopetism meant. Google couldn't help me out there. Webster's Dictionary couldn't help me out. So we just wanted to find a good, strong one-word name, like the old Claiborne style of strong one-word names with a clever connotation to the pedigree. But we just ended up trying to find a word that ended in ism. Threw a few out there, and thankfully Bridlewood, Don Alberto, and Mr. LaPenta agreed to it. Our Eclipse partners liked it, and it's worked out so far. I had a very brief experience as a journalist, as the sports editor of my high school newspaper. People accuse me at times of being a disgruntled sports writer. I do a lot of writing for Eclipse, updating our partners on our horses, and we do a weekly newsletter. So it's come in handy over the years. I was an attorney for 6.5 years. Writing was a very integral part of that job as well. So I'm very happy to have had the journalistic experience, but I consider myself a born-again journalist and attorney, and very grateful to be in the horse racing business full-time. What's
more fun, being a journalist, an attorney, or the owner of a Derby horse?
Yeah, I'd go with Derby horse.
Okay.
I don't want to single anybody out, but what's so cool about the Derby and having a horse of prominence that's aiming towards the Derby is, look, we love you guys, and you guys are in the trenches with us year round, right, as part of the horse racing media. But the Derby really transcends just our industry bubble, right? So, to be interviewed by NBC and CBS and the Wall Street Journal and national media outlets is pretty wild, and we just really hope to be representing the industry well, and so that the industry could be proud of, who's representing the Kentucky Derby favorite at this point.